Hi, I'm Zacciah Blackburn from Sunreed Instruments and the Center of Light. We are specialists in the fields of sound healing and shamanic studies. We offer high-quality products and services in these fields, including educational services in sound healing therapeutic trainings, in human consciousness evolution, and in the mysteries of the earth and the wisdom that resides therein. Specifically in this program, I'd like to speak to you about the nature of healing. Healing is a word that means many things to each of us. If I was to speak to a medical doctor, the nature of healing might have to do with simple symptomology, physiological symptomology. If I'm not presenting symptoms of illness, then I'm healed, I'm good to go. There's no reason to think of myself as not being healed. If I was a psychotherapist, then we would be exploring the nature of emotional wellness. A holistic therapist would be looking at the body-mind connection and so forth. I've always been invested in the study of the nature of spirituality and who we are as human beings. And I find a direct connection to the nature of who we are and the nature of healing. Indeed, most wisdom cultures of the world, and by wisdom cultures I mean traditional cultures of spiritual study, most wisdom cultures of the world speak to the nature of healing, speak to the nature of self-realization and the interconnection of that. By understanding the true nature of who we are and our purpose here, or our relationship to the greater whole, to the greater cosmos, we discover the nature of ourself, and that is the process and the journey of healing for many cultures. Indeed, if I look at the very word healing, I love root origins and the original meanings of words. They tend to give me a depth of understanding about our language itself. If I were to look at Daniel Webster and look at the word healing and its root origin, the original meaning of it was whole or wholeness, and that gives me some depth of understanding of what healing might be. Healing is wholeness. But there again, wholeness, what is that? That also is going to mean many different things to each of us. But I can understand how a sense of wholeness might be upon me. And within that, perhaps a connection to the greater whole. And indeed, again, that speaks to that relationship which is communicated over and over in different wisdom traditions about the nature of the self, meaning the true self, in relationship to the greater cosmos or to the principles of the cosmos, the laws and principles that guide and bind us in our evolution as human beings within the greater cosmos. If I look at the word whole itself, it goes even deeper into the meaning of healing. So healing means wholeness. If I look at Daniel Webster and the original meaning of the word, healing means holy. And that takes me to a whole nother depth of understanding and meaning in my search for what healing is. If healing is wholeness and wholeness is holiness, then I must look at that as well. And in my own interpretation of this, first of all, holy has no further derivation in Webster. Holy is a word unto itself, retaining its original meaning. And its common meaning is that which is not tainted. I could interpret that as that which is pure, that not tainted or that pure. That's in my inherent nature, or that's the nature of healing. And indeed, if I look at Eastern philosophy, Eastern spiritual traditions, they speak explicitly to this, that the nature of the self is pure consciousness. The nature of reality is pure reality, untainted by view, by bias, by emotional entanglement, and so forth. And in those Eastern traditions, there are explicit pathways of self-realization, of attaining to a sense of wholeness within the self and the sense of the true self in relationship to the greater cosmos or the principles therein. Even in indigenous American civilizations, there's much about this. I've worked with one teacher who is a lineage carrier of a 2,600-year-old tradition of luminous wisdom from a great prophet that visited the Cherokee people, again, 2,600 years ago. And a friend of mine who went through the initiations and orientation of becoming a teacher in her lineage tradition shared with me that he had to light a dark room at night in order to become validated as an authentic teacher of those luminous wisdom practices that arose from this 2,600-year-old tradition. Lighting a dark room at night, that speaks volumes to me about the nature of the inherent self. In the Buddhist tradition, we understand that luminosity is a fundamental aspect of ourself and who we are, that we're self-luminous. If we simply abide within the essential nature of our true self, without engaging in the bias of who we think we are, the smallness of who we've been taught to believe we are, and the illusion of separation that occurs when we reside within our egocentric self. Our ego fundamentally is a belief in ourself as something apart and different from the rest of humanity and the rest of creation. It is a method of self-isolation. It's a method of self-definition, but also a method of self-isolation. Or isolation is the outcome of an egocentric view of the world. In wisdom traditions, the pathway is evolving the fundamental nature or essence of ourself, which is beyond what most of us have been taught to believe in. Indeed, in the West, we have a very limited view of the nature of reality. And in wisdom cultures, there's a much more expansive and holistic view of reality that stretches into the infinite cosmos. Indeed, one of the phrases I love in Tibetan wisdom is that regarding the Prajnaparamita, or the nature of the divine feminine, the mother of all life, that stretches beyond all imagination. It stretches beyond all cognition, beyond all structure and form. It's beyond even that. And it would be said that if you think you understand what I just said, it's beyond even that, because it's not a part of our normal cognitive sense of reality. More, it's a part of our intuitive, felt sense of experiential reality, of resting fully in the pure essence of self in relationship to the greater cosmos. So how do I attain to this pure essence of self? Tradition after tradition after tradition has explicit methodology for doing this. We've been cultivated in the arts of these spiritual methodologies and initiated in these lineage teachings of different spiritual methodologies and traditions that allow us direct connection and great wisdom to bring forward the teachings of such traditions. For instance, the Quero traditions of central Peru, considered the high wisdom teachers of the Andean mysteries. Within their tradition, we carry within us a seed of our potential, which is also known as the Inca seed, and how that translates is actually the seed of enlightenment. It's the potential of our enlightened, fully awake self that we carry right here in the belly, very much in the same place that the Eastern traditions would speak of the Hara center, a very potent place or energy center within us, waiting to restore balance, harmony, growth, evolution, empowerment, and so forth of the greater self. So if we rest in this seed of our potential in the Andean traditions, we have methods of awakening the seed, of grounding and rooting it in the very earth herself, of creating relationship with the very elements of the earth, such as air, water, fire, and earth, and drawing the nourishment of the earth and these elements into the seed to help it to flourish and grow and thrive, growing up through the central channel of our energy system, much like in the chakra systems of the East, growing and beginning to bud in the heart and blossoming in the crown to become what is said as a flower of blossoming joy in service to the garden of creation. This is the inherent nature of ourself in the Andean tradition, a flower of blossoming joy. in service to the garden of creation. Here is the essential nature of pure self in relationship to the principles of the cosmos, a phrase repeated over and over in different languages, in different spiritual schools. When we can understand this and attain to the wisdom of our pure potential and dismiss, dissolve, resolve, or heal the nature of ourself that we have believed in, that we have invested in, our small egocentric self, which in understanding the reality of the self is not authentic, is not true, and is probably not beneficial. In my worldview, at best, the ego should be in service to the great master of the true divine self that we truly are, residing within the wholeness of the cosmos as a child of creation, inheriting that kingdom of creation which is ours to behold. It's been spoken by prophet upon prophet and taught by wisdom teaching upon wisdom teaching. The nature of that inherent kingdom of pure revelation that resides within us. Now we're getting close to that place of pure healing, who we truly are, and the purpose that we serve here in this embodiment to the whole of creation, to the interconnectedness of life. All of this is part of that pathway of self-realization and self-actualization, which is the pathway of healing, the pathway of wholeness, the pathway of attaining to our holiness or pure essence, that which is not tainted. We have been taught to believe that we are tainted by birth, that by our very birth we are tainted here. And many cultures would say that is not true. Our true nature is clear, pure, and whole. And instead we have been taught to believe that we are dirty, blamed, sinful, angry, sad, tormented, wounded, shamed, anything but whole and complete. And by utilizing simple practices that will allow us to come into the clear spaciousness of our authentic self and resting and abiding there within the wisdom teachings themselves, by coming into these inherent states of clarity within, they are self-nourishing, they are self-luminous, and they are self-liberating, just by resting in the clear space of the inherent self, by fixing our attention upon the authentic nature of the self, rather than this raggedy band of thought processes and wounded emotions that we believe we are, or that we carry as our identity in this embodiment. This is not who we are. This is who we have learned and trained to become, not just through this lifetime, but through many. And many of us carry the wounds and traumas of this and other lifetimes, and we believe we must face them and deal with them in order to heal. In our own pathway of evolution, we discover that by claiming the authentic, clear nature of self, that oftentimes it simply dissolves that which we believe we are, which is not our authentic nature. The woundedness can go away. I remember when I first came into this level of understanding and revelation, I would say to others, who cares if my mother didn't love me when I'm being held by the great mother of all life? Just think of that for a moment in terms of your own relationships and woundedness, whatever they may be. Who cares that someone is not loving me when I'm held by the very fountain of life itself? It becomes irrelevant, that wounded nature of the self. And I will tell you this, as long as you believe you are wounded, as long as you believe you are a victim, you will not be healed, because you cannot have both at the same time. Either you're wounded or healed, one or the other. Take your choice. And if you wish to work with us, you'll find we have authentic methodology to assist us in this process. We also offer one-on-one training and consultation for betterment of the self and discovery of the self and revelation and realization of the self and healing of those wounds, embracing them, resolving them, dissolving them. Whatever method we find may be the way to go, but for many of us, it's simply turning on the light of self-realization. And when we learn to turn the light on of our luminous, inherent self, We dismiss all of the darkness and shadow around us because light and shadow do not coexist. There's light or shadow. Take your pick. Which do you want to dwell within? And we teach methodology of coming into that luminous quality and sustaining that light field such that we simply diminish the shadow and our belief in it, as if that wounded child is who we are. It is not. Many of us have gone through very deep wounds, trauma, and aggravation, and we need help in dissolving that and meeting it. But these methods and teachings can help each of us to come into a greater state of wholeness, a greater state of healing, and a discovery of that pure essence or holiness of who we truly are. We welcome you. We invite you to come and join us in these practices. There are many. They are profound. They touch many people in very sacred ways, in ways many of us would not even imagine. We use sacred sound in the teachings to assist us to amplify and maximize the benefit of these profound practices that arise from these sacred traditions. We welcome you. We invite your questions. Come and be with us. In a sacred way, we make these offerings.